Hoping for failure, Fox News contributor Laura Ingraham lashing out at establishment Republicans for not uniting behind President Trump. Take a listen.
A lot of them don't want Donald Trump to succeed. A lot of them don't like his policies. He crushed them, and they never got over it. And the day after the election, they began plotting what they hoped would be his demise.
Now is Karl Rove, former George W. Bush senior advisor and a Fox News contributor. And I wonder if she was talking about you, among others, Karl. What do you think?
I don't know who she's talking about. Republicans in the House moved on the president's health care agenda. In fact, they were moving when it wasn't really clear what the White House was going to come down in favor of. Yeah, we've had a problem in the Senate for reasons that I find inexplicable. John McCain shows up, votes to proceed to a debate, says, I don't want the skinny bill to be the final measure. I think we need to go to a conference committee and work on this more. I want the Speaker of the House to give me his commitment that they're not going to immediately take up the skinny bill. The Speaker of the House abases himself in front of Senator McCain, says, of course we won't. We'll go to a conference committee and work on this more. And what does McCain do? He votes against it. I don't get it.
So you're blaming McCain for not going along with the president. And that leads to the question of who is more responsible for congressional inaction, President Trump, as some are saying. I mean, Jeff Flake seemed to be implying that at one point, and he specifically was mentioned by Laura Ingraham as one of those Republicans who wants him to fail. And is the president responsible, or is it congressional actors themselves?
Well, look, there's plenty of blame to go around, but I have to say the president of the United States, whatever party they are, is the, Alexander Hamilton was correct. There's energy in the executive, and that president has to lead Congress. It's like herding cats. For 7 years I was at the White House, and we had a Republican majority in the Senate for 5.5 of those. We had a Republican majority in the House for all 6 of 7, and it was always herding cats. The White House needs to be providing clarity as to the policy. It needs to be providing the venue to solve disagreements within the Congress itself, and it needs to work hand in glove with sponsors in the House and Senate.
And it needs to connect, most important, Karl, and I'm sure you'd agree, is it needs to connect to the American people. And no president since Ronald Reagan has had that ability on a gut level to identify with Americans' real hidden concerns, the things that have been bugging them for years, than Donald Trump does. So if he can use General Kelly, use a new platform, maybe make more primetime speeches and directly to the American people, he can get somewhere, no?
Yeah. Well, there's a piece tomorrow in the Wall Street Journal on this very subject with some concrete recommendations to General Kelly on this regard. It's a brilliant piece. I think they've done a really good job on it.
I think I know who the author is.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's one other issue, though, in this regard that we need to talk about, and that is, remember, Donald Trump doesn't have the connections that previous presidents have had with his leadership in the Congress. There's no long-standing personal relationships, hasn't run into him on the campaign trail.
Well, he campaigned against them. It's not a surprise, is it? I mean, his whole campaign message was these guys inside the Beltway have to be kicked out. I just want to get one more thing in because we're running out of time, but the whole issue of tax reform, we care about it desperately here at Fox Business. As good as the market is, it's great to have a new record, but I don't think the economy is moving as fast as it could be. If you have the tax cuts, it really could get that. We had the Democrats come out, lay down some markers as to what was acceptable and what was not acceptable in terms of that, and it's ridiculous. I mean, they essentially say that their only position is there could be no tax cuts at all.
Yeah, look, are you shocked that Chuck Schumer lays down conditions that are impossible for Republicans to meet? Look, Republicans ought to ignore them, but attempt to reach out to Democrats, but do this tax cut under reconciliation. And try and find Democrats who will agree on the merits of a territorial tax system that doesn't tax the profits of U.S. companies twice, lower corporate tax rates in order to encourage investment in plants and equipment, and a cut in personal income tax rates in order to help spur economic growth. That's what we ought to be aimed at, and we ought to try and convince Democrats to come along in a pro-growth economic tax cut. And if they don't,
with leadership like Schumer, they're not going to, maybe one or two. But meanwhile, there is still health care reform. And here's what OMB Director Mick Mulvaney says about health care. Take a listen.
Obamacare's still broken. It was just as broken today as it was last week, in fact, more so. The president is not giving up on this, and I think what you're seeing from the White House is encouragement to the Senate, especially the Senate, to stay and not give up either. If the president's not giving up, they shouldn't give up.
Karl, you agree?
I totally agree. This is a big promise we made to the American people.
Yeah.
Maybe there needs to be incremental reform, but the incremental reforms ought to be things that shore up the individual market and make conservative changes in our health care policy that move it in a reform direction.
And if you want to hear about General Kelly and how he can get this organization inside the White House moving along as it should, you read Karl's column tomorrow in the Wall Street Journal. Karl Rove, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.